Our top story tonight, the Department of Justice and the FBI acting as though they're not only above the law, but have no intention of being held accountable. The special counsel's office today declared to a federal judge that the FBI's behavior in questioning National Security Advisor Michael Flynn without giving him legal representation or the opportunity for such representation in January of last year did not cause him to make false statements. Former FBI Director James Comey over the weekend suggesting he took advantage of a young administration by placing General Flynn in a perjury trap.
You look at this White House now, and it's hard to imagine two FBI agents ending up in the sit room. How did that happen?
I sent them. Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration, in the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration. In both of those administrations, there was process. And so if the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals and who would be there. And I thought, it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over.
There is a man who thinks he's quite cute. That much is certainly obvious. For what is not obvious, we have with us Greg Jarrett and Cleta Mitchell to sort it all out. The outrageous actions of the DOJ certainly not limited to the ever-expanding Mueller witch hunt. Just last month, 16 FBI agents raided the home of a protected Department of Justice whistleblower who had delivered documents pertaining to the Clinton Foundation and Uranium One to a government watchdog. It was Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein who boldly suggested he wear a wire to record the president and suggested invoking the 25th Amendment to remove the president from office. The text messages exhibiting flagrant anti-Trump bias exchanged between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, thousands of texts between the two, wiped clean by the Mueller witch hunt before turning their phones over to the DOJ Inspector General. And of course, the disgraced former FBI Director Comey, who orchestrated the leak of the memos he took of his meetings with President Trump to the media, and of course, who sent over those two investigators from the FBI to the White House. Joining me now, attorney, former member of the Oklahoma House of Representatives, Cleta Mitchell, Greg Jarrett, Fox Business legal analyst, author of the New York Times bestseller, The Russia Hoax. Good to have you both here. Cleta, let's start first with what seems to me to be an admission by the FBI director that he was not following either law or procedure or observing the rights of General Flynn when he sent over, as he cutely put it, a couple of FBI agents to the White House.
Well, that's exactly right. But let's talk about why were they over there in the first place? Why were they going to interview him? Well, they were interviewing him because the Obama administration had unmasked his conversations. Now, this is the incoming National Security Director, whose job is going to be to communicate with foreign leaders. Right. And during the transition, that's what he was doing. The Obama administration recorded those and gave the transcripts of those conversations to the FBI. The FBI reads those conversations, and the conversation with Russian Ambassador Kislyak, and then they see an article, an interview with General Flynn in the Washington Post, in which he said in the article that he did not discuss the Russia sanctions issue with the Russian ambassador. They say, oh, we've seen the transcript. That's not telling the truth. And that's when they came up with this idea to go and see if he would tell them the same thing. Now, my question is, number one, why is the FBI reading the transcripts of his conversations? Why did the Obama administration unmask those conversations? And why did Jim Comey and remember, it was Peter Strzok who went over and just was going to shoot the breeze with General Flynn and then try to get him to say to them what he'd said to the Washington Post, which he did.
Well, so they had already said in those texts between themselves that they're still looking. They were looking for an insurance policy, and Strzok in particular had forsworn his dying opposition. He was one of the early members of the resistance to the Trump administration, working under the colors of the FBI. Greg, your thoughts?
Well, these are the court documents today, and they are rich with evidence of corruption on the part of the FBI and to some extent the Department of Justice. They admit in the 302 document that the FBI agents
and the 302
well, the 302 is a summary by the FBI of an interview. They admit that Flynn told the truth. So the question that Judge Emmett Sullivan should have on Tuesday is, Mr. Mueller, why are you prosecuting? Why did you charge a guy who your own agents interviewed and determined told the truth? And then I think if I were the judge, I would turn to General Flynn and say, General Flynn, why did you plead guilty to something you didn't do? Were you coerced? Was your son threatened by these special counsel operators over here at the other table?
How about why did the FBI director acknowledge, as he acknowledges, send over 2 agents thwarting what is policy, procedure,
right,
and the legal demand for representation for a formal interview? It wasn't just a little trek across town to the White House.
Well, you called Comey cute. I'd call him cunning and corrupt, and also a liar. This is
cute as Texas for all.
Yeah, I mean, this document here shows that he deceived the acting attorney general and didn't tell her about what he was doing with the interview with Flynn until it was too late. And then when she found out about it, she was angry. This is in the documents today. Comey deserved to be fired 100 times over for 100 acts of misfeasance and malfeasance. But the important point that Cleta is making here, there was no legal basis for the FBI to even interview Michael Flynn. It's not a crime to talk to the Russian ambassador during a transition.
I want to follow up with Cleta, where you took us back to the beginning, and that is the surveillance of the White House staff, the incoming administration, and in particular, excuse me, General Flynn. There's been no accountability. No one has been held to account in the Obama administration for what was clearly an unprecedented surveillance of political opposition and the succeeding candidate in a presidential election. This is outrageous, and you don't see it anywhere in the Washington Post, the New York Times, CBS News, NBC News.
No.
This is outrageous.
It's completely outrageous, but here's what you did see in the New York Times and the Washington Post and all of those places. Remember when President Trump said back during the spring of 2017, when he told the American people, in part based on what Devin Nunes had learned and
the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee.
That's right. And remember, the left went crazy, and he had to step aside for a few months while there was an ethics investigation because Devin Nunes told the truth. He was ultimately exonerated. But remember,
I think there's another issue in that as well. The House leadership was absolutely aligned with those Democrats.
But remember when the president said to the American people that his campaign had been under surveillance by the Obama administration.
Been wiretapped was his word.
All of those newspapers, the headlines, go back and look at it.
Oh, I can remember now the mockery, the snark in their tone.
Him. They said, with no evidence, the president says without evidence that his campaign was under surveillance. Honestly, you ought to Google sometime how many times there are headlines that quote the president, and then in the headline or the first paragraph it says without evidence, without any facts.
Yeah.
They dispute what he says the moment it comes out of his mouth.
And this president has been fighting this battle alone. And I think every American needs to understand that. Not with the assistance, the support, the help, the strategic assistance and thoughts of either the leaders of either the House or the Senate.
Right.
this president fighting alone. And it's time that that change.
Well, and he's fighting individuals in his own department now as well who want to hide the evidence and obstruct Congress. I wish the president would declassify.
Wait a minute, what do you mean, and obstruct Congress?
Well, Rod Rosenstein is refusing to hand over documents to Congress. For example, in here, the FBI agent with Peter Strzok, they are redacting his name. We know who he is, Joe Pitenka. And Rosenstein refuses to allow that individual to testify before Congress.
We've known this throughout. We've known this throughout. This president knows it. He is the one who wanted to fire Rosenstein. He is the one who chose not to.
Right.
For his own reasons. He is the one who has chosen, Cleta, not to release those documents, those FISA documents that are at the foundation of much that is going on. We'll have to figure.
Yes, but
we'll have to figure out the rest of that. I'm sorry, Cleta, we're out of time.
Okay.
Thank you both.
Sorry.
Appreciate it,
My
Greg,
pleasure.
Cleta.
All right. Thanks.
And we're coming right back. Stay with us. Breaking news now. President Trump has named Mick Mulvaney as acting White House Chief of Staff. Mulvaney, of course, budget director. He's a director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau as well. President Trump saying Mulvaney has done a, quote, outstanding job in his administration, and indeed he has done so. The United States facing a potential government shutdown if the rhinos and radical Dems refuse to fund the president's border wall, and Congress leaving town for the weekend if they've not already left in total. The Senate is in recess until Monday, the House in recess till Wednesday, so there's no potential deal on the table. Fox News Capitol Hill producer Chad Pergam reporting chances are pretty high the government will be shut down. Joining us now, former Reagan White House political director, Fox Business political analyst, Ed Rollins. Ed.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Chad Pergam here. He thinks that because of the timing, the Congress out until Wednesday, the odds are very high that on the 21st, the government will shut down.
Well, my sense is the Democrats and the Republicans may go along with it, trying to continue a resolution or something. If the president hangs tough, it makes the wall his demand, as he has said all the way through he's going to do that. It may very well get shut down. But my sense is there's not much stomach among any of the gutless wonders on the Hill, new and old, to do anything like that.
But these gutless wonders have done it before, and I don't know why there would be any different outcome.
Well, they don't like shutting the government down. They all feel they pay a price when that occurs. So,
but they don't mind not working.
Well, they don't. You can see that. That's obvious.
I want to turn to first Mick Mulvaney.
Fabulous choice.
I was going to ask you what you think
Fabulous
of him, and how many jobs can one man hold simultaneously, though?
The bottom line is he better tell his wife and his kids he'll see them in 2 years or 4 years. The great part about him is he knows the government, he knows the Congress. He's the perfect choice. He walks in there, he knows what this president needs. There's no disruptive. He just changes his place at the table, and I think it'll be a very smooth operation. And clearly, he can make it happen for the president. The problem bringing someone else in is they try and change things or they alter things. Mm-hmm. The dynamics are very effective at this point in time. And the critical thing is the government still has to run through all this crisis stuff, and he can make it happen.
You know, I have to say, as the fake news was swirling around the chief of staff choice on the part of the president, my heart sank several times in the midst of all of that, not least of which was when Mulvaney started making noises about rather going to Treasury or to Commerce, at least according to some accounts. I haven't talked to him about that. But I think he's a man who I think if he really wants the job, I hope he takes it because he would serve the president.
Well, I think he'll perform at a very able level. My sense is they're making it acting because he is a cabinet Senate-approved OMB director, and so
OMB is not the simplest of all the departments.
It is a complicated job, and particularly now with the new budget coming forward. Again, he's going to have to. I hope he gets by on 4 hours sleep a night because that's what the kind of schedule is. But I think the key thing is he knows what the president needs. There's no disruptive force. The president can focus on all the chaos that's going on around him.
Yeah, Mulvaney has served this president quietly, so effectively. He's a bright, hardworking conservative. I don't think the president could find better.
And knows the Congress, and obviously knows the other side of the Congress, which is now going to be in the House, particularly is going to be the Democrats. So he can give the president good guidance.
Yeah, he's had to put up with a few of them over the years.
Yes, he has.
We're going to take a quick. I want to get in one more question here, and that is on what Greg and Cleta and I were talking about, and that is this persecution of the president. The obvious. Let's listen to, if we may, the former fired FBI director, still fired former FBI director, talk about his remarks about how he sent agents over to the White House to interview General Flynn. Get your thoughts on it.
I sent them. Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration, in the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration.
That's shades of J. Edgar Hoover, and obviously
I think the man ought to be in jail.
Well, the reality is, any good White House would have had a counsel who would have been in that room. We had Fred Fielding when I was in the White House, who was a veteran of Watergate and one of the great lawyers, who would have basically said, "Thank you very much. You deal with me. I make a decision who you see and who you don't see, and that's the way it goes."
And for him to pursue this, to surveil this president, this presidential candidate under the Obama administration, and not to be held, and there seems to be no thought of holding him accountable.
I think this was a continuation of the Brennan and all the bad guys that were there before.
Well, we know it is.
And I think from his perspective, he thought he could get something on them and maybe get a favor here to guarantee his future. Yeah. But it's outrageous and it's criminal.
Ed Rollins,
thank you.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. And the question is, should Congress remain in session throughout the holidays until they reach an agreement to fund President Trump's border wall? The president could do that. He could say, get over here. Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. Up next.